Now to Lower Manhattan, where closing arguments in Donald Trump's criminal trial are still ongoing. Trump's attorney, Todd Blanche, started the day, and though he spoke for nearly 3 hours, the message was simple. We deny and he lied. Blanche stressed his client's innocence and said the liar was Trump's former lawyer and the prosecution's star witness, Michael Cohen. Blanche even referred to Cohen as the GLOAT, or greatest liar of all time. Prosecution said documents don't lie. Attorney Joshua Steinglass cited text messages, emails, and other correspondence that back up their claims. Prosecutors accused Mr. Trump of participating in a criminal scheme to pay adult film actress Stormy Daniels $130,000 in exchange for her silence about an alleged sexual encounter in 2006, and then falsifying business records about the payment to obscure that fact. The former president denies the encounter and has pleaded not guilty to 34 charges of falsifying business records. In Florida, where Trump is on trial for mishandling classified documents after he left the White House, federal judge Eileen Cannon rejected special counsel Jack Smith's request for a gag order. The order would have prevented the former president from making inflammatory comments about law enforcement. Last week, Trump lied that when the FBI searched Mar-a-Lago for classified documents in 2022, they had special orders to assassinate him if he resisted. And joining us now is Katrina Kaufman and Rebecca Roiphe. Katrina is a CBS News campaign reporter and attorney who's been in the courtroom throughout the trial. And Rebecca is a CBS News legal contributor. Katrina, I'll start with you. Sum up the closing argument here for the defense for us.
Todd Blanche's argument. So, as you said, what Todd Blanche really focused on was, one, that to begin with, he said that these business records were not, in fact, falsified, and also that Trump had no knowledge of them. There was no intent to cover up any sort of crime. But the key was really that, as you were saying, he said that the jury cannot trust Michael Cohen. And he had all of these zingers. You mentioned one of them. He called him the GLOAT. He called him the MVP of liars. He also said he's the human embodiment of reasonable doubt. Literally, he gave 10 reasons that the jury should have reasonable doubt in this case. And he said that Michael Cohen was the 10th and really the final one. He also brought up the fact that the defense claims that Michael Cohen may have committed perjury under oath on the stand in this trial. So not only does he have a history of lying, but perhaps he has even lied to this jury, according to the defense. But what the prosecution said, because I just stepped out of their closing arguments, which I thought was interesting, is they said, we didn't choose Michael Cohen to be our star witness. Trump chose him. He actually said we didn't pick him from the witness store. So really, he was saying that in emphasizing the fact that the person that Trump chose to be his personal attorney embodies all of these terrible qualities, he's also highlighting that that's a person that Trump chose to have representing him and have close to him in his circle for such a long period of time.
Right. They were, for a long time, a feature and not a bug when he was in Mr. Trump's employ. Rebecca, let me ask you a question. It seems like it's a pretty simple case, which is Michael Cohen is a known mountainous liar, so why believe what he's saying? But the former president's defense went on for about 3 hours. Does that tell you anything about either the strength of their defense? Did they go on too long? How should we assess that closing argument?
I think the closing argument on the part of the defense was a bit meandering. And part of the problem is that they didn't focus in on their strongest arguments for reasonable doubt. Instead, they kind of wanted to hit the ball out of the park on all of these different arguments. And what that does is undermine the lawyer's credibility when it comes to those key arguments that are the strongest that he has. So, for instance, he wasted a lot of time saying that the former president never had an affair with Stormy Daniels. Who cares? It's not even a part of the elements. It doesn't even matter. But for some reason, that seemed important to them, maybe because it was important to their client. But that's distracting. And I think that the jury, if they think that the lawyer is trying to sell them on something, then they won't believe them when it comes to the most important parts.
So basically, did it seem to you like the lawyer was trying to ride two horses? I mean, he's got a jury in the box and then the public jury that the defendant is very, very conscious of.
Yes. And I think the defendant's own ego, because it is also about everything being perfect. This is the Trump mantra. Not only am I innocent, but everything was perfect. And so the defense attorneys are somewhat selling this everything was perfect at the expense of reasonable doubt here, right here. And so I think they would have done a better job if they had zeroed in on that. It was a little bit the same as the cross-examinations for those people who have followed the trial. The cross-examinations on the part of the defense, similarly, sort of all over the place, trying to make 15 million points and getting it such that the trees are lost in the forest.
Katrina, two quick questions because they're the last ones to you. One, anything else about the prosecution's closing argument that struck you? And also, give us just a little taste of the circus outside of the courtroom with the supporters of President Biden showing up for the first time. We've seen a lot of visitations from supporters of former President Trump.
Yes, so the prosecution is going to go on even longer than the defense with their closing arguments today. But Joshua Steinglass, who is the attorney making this argument, is really going very methodically through the timeline of this entire case, all of the characters, all of the calls, the text messages, really bringing all of this together for the jury, because it is a very long and complicated story that they've heard over the past 5 weeks or so. But I think one of the biggest things he mentioned was the catch and kill scheme, of course, which we initially heard about with David Pecker, where he, Donald Trump, and Michael Cohen devised a scheme to prevent damaging stories about him from coming out before the election. That was, of course, the Stormy Daniels story, the Karen McDougal one, and the Dino Sajudin, a doorman from Trump's building. And what Joshua Steinglass said is that might have been the most valuable contribution that anyone made to this campaign. And this is really where the unlawful campaign contribution comes in, which is one of the underlying crimes the prosecution has to prove. But to your other question, the Biden campaign had a surrogate here for the first time today. Robert De Niro came with two former Capitol police officers, and that was the first time that anyone from their office had come, because really we've just seen Trump, the Republican surrogates here. Biden has been not really talking about this case, trying to keep a safe distance, because Trump is always talking about how politicized it is. And it's just been clear that Biden's wanted to really detach himself from what's going on here, but they finally decided to make a statement during closing arguments today.
Katrina Kaufman and Rebecca Roiphe, thank you.